Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to J is for Justice. My name is Jay. I am your host, and it is day 7 of New Hampshire versus Adam Montgomery. And I see that Rapper's up nice and early today. And Angie B, thank God Angie B gets up early. Oh, excuse me. I don't know if I'm getting sick or if it's allergies, so pardon me. Good morning, jammers. Angie B, Megs, Fernando, hello. Lucia, good morning. Hope you guys had a good night last night. We watched a couple spooky, creepy Valentine's love stories gone wrong last night. Seba, your internet has been sketchy? Mine's a little sketchy this morning. So I don't know if I'm going to have to restart later. Yes, please hit that like button, guys. Good morning, Sandra. Good morning, Debbie. Thank you so much, Debbie. Tell all your friends. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. We actually we strive to go past that, but our goal is 100K. I won't even believe if I make it to 100K. To be quite honest, it is chilly here in Florida too. I'm cold and it's morning and I woke up with a sinus headache, but I'm here. Good morning, Jana. She said, good morning. Glad to be here. Just got myself all worked up making unpopular comments on channels who bash other creators. Now I can relax. I know, Steven. I'll be all right. I think it's allergies, though. I mean, we went from like 80 degrees to 60 degrees or 50s even. Quinny, good morning. Jeff Kent, good morning. Melissa, good morning. Lizzie Bones coming in hot. Good morning, Lizzie. Lizzie, I just want to let you know everything turned out like better than I could have expected. Like me and her's cool now. So I'm glad. Carmen with an E, good morning. Sandra, hope you're doing well. You're welcome. It's going to be 80 in Sarasota. It does not feel like it's going to be 80 here. Moflo, Jay, you are a beast on this trial. You make it more tolerable to watch. Thank you. Carmen with an E is getting snow. Healing Nature, good morning. I know it's chilly here. It doesn't feel like it's going to be 80. Let me see what my weather thing is telling me. You woke up with a headache? Yes, it's contagious. It's 62. I guess it's going to be 75 tonight. It's 62 here. Feels like 62. Good morning, Michelle T. Good morning, jammers. Sherry Lynn, good morning. Oh, I know, Lizzie. At first, I was like, oh, shit. I was like, what? What's going to happen here? But no, it's all good. It's all good. I got where she was coming. I was picking up what she was laying down. You know, but like you said, it was innocent. But I'm glad. I'm glad too. D. Marie, good morning. Lizzie, it seems like every time I'm on Twitter X, I get myself in some kind of I feel like I need to restart the stream, guys. I'm getting an error that it says YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. In London, it feels like summer. Well, that's nice. Are you guys buffering? Because it says I have a poor connection with YouTube. It says your current bit rate. Oh, the stream's bit rate is lower than the recommended bit rate. We recommend you use a stream bit rate of 6800 kbps. It's going to get hot today then. It's going to feel hot, Jana. Good morning, Lauren. 40 there. Hi, Brooke. Waving back at you. You're not buffering? Okay. Hopefully we don't. I'll leave it then. Good morning, Myron. Oh, now it says good. Okay, we'll leave it. I buffered it first too. I always check it on my phone, to make sure we're okay. It's been weird. I'm wondering, should I restart it before court starts? Jammers keeps getting tossed. The stream's current bit rate 2421 is lower than the recommended bit rate. Good morning, Michelle. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a secondary just in case. Have another live set up. Just in case, and then we're ready to go. You just never know. And every day YouTube demonetizes this at the beginning of the day, every day. Every time. We haven't even said anything bad yet. I think they have keywords to like certain topics because that's just weird. That automatically your shit gets demonetized before you even talked. I think they have keywords that they know, like certain cases are such. All right, I'm going to get a secondary stream ready just in case. Dr. G did a body language on Kayla's testimony. It was really good. Thank you for letting us know that, Mother. Mother. Good morning, Steph. As long as y'all have a good connection, that's all I'm worried about. I kind of was buffering in the beginning, but then I got booted out when it actually started. And I had to come back. Like it booted me to tomorrow's stream, Friday stream. I can't believe tomorrow's Friday. Like this week has been so long. I mean, not because of you guys, just did you, Myron? It's hard. That's a lot to take in. Mimsy. Yeah, I mean, if I was you, I would go back. Yesterday I chaptered everything. Every day I chapter the live when it's over so that if you guys want to go back, if you haven't seen it, or if you want to go back and watch a specific part, you can. I would go back because they did show a lot of evidence and DNA. They had DNA, or they had forensic specialists on the stand yesterday. So I don't believe there was any civilian witnesses yesterday. I think it was all Ellie. Robin, I wake up and look forward to seeing y'all in my live streams. You thought today was Friday? I know. So did I. And I'm bummed. I was supposed to get my grand this weekend and I can't because my car's not fixed. Good morning, Kendi. Kendo. You've been caffeinated up for a while now? Shit, I'm still sitting here trying to wake up. Mother of Cycle Breakers is zinging already. Good morning, Scout. Good morning, Lori. I feel like they haven't proved that Adam killed his daughter only by Kayla's testimony. They need to prove more evidence. So you have reasonable doubt, Lori. Let's do a poll. Did you guys see they have 3 shooters now in custody? And did you see that the chief said there was no children injured and there was like 12 children brought to the children's hospital? All right, this is just going to be yes or no. I know you guys like options. I have a video from Court TV that I'm going to play at break that I want you guys to see about what these experts think about Kayla and her testimony. Ooh, crab legs. Hey, Boo Sheet. Boo's like, don't call me Boo Shit.
Rise, please.
Oh, here we go.
Please be seated. Okay, everybody's here.
We all here.
So Mr. Agati had to file something this morning. He's on his way, but he should be here within 5 minutes. He filed something in this matter.
What'd you say?
He filed something in this matter that the court should have received this morning.
Oh, there was a filing this
Did you
morning.
receive it?
Oh, Elaine. She's a little lady, isn't she?
Okay.
There was a filing this morning. So what is
You wanna
that?
approach so you can tell me what it is?
Okay, so there was a filing and the judge doesn't know what it is. And the other lawyer's not there yet because he had to do this. Jana, I always try to chapter these. Look at all that evidence. It is just unbelievable, that poor baby. No, they haven't said done. They haven't really given us any scenario. They've literally talked in circles. They have talked in circles. Carmen with an E. I think he is totally guilty, but she knew and helped him equally. Yeah, that's what Inner Space, that's I think they were doing that too. But I feel like in this video I'm going to show you guys, this lady, this expert, she's like, Kayla got a sweet deal and she's like, she thought it seemed like an inappropriate deal considering what we're finding out in the trial. It looks like 91% of you could convict Adam based on what we know. I mean, yesterday they proved that his fingerprints were in the ceiling, which I think we all kind of figured that Adam would be the one to put her in the ceiling, not Kayla. Dior, she can be released in May. Stacy says, I feel like none of the witnesses are testifying to this case. I know. It's like all of the civilian witnesses that have deals, all Elaine did was bring them up. Caroline, aka Elaine. All she did was bring them up and say, you have a deal with this and you said that. And it's like, what about Harmony? Daff, thank you. You're the best. Good morning, everybody. We're a little bit delayed. Good morning, Mike Sanner. I'll be watching from a smart TV and unable to type. Good morning, all. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Leslie. Oh, we got two Leslies. Leslie Ellswick says, I think they are both guilty, but she killed her. Dior, it's awful. That is not justice. And W. Smith says, how do we know Kayla didn't do it? That's my only hesitation. Right, because we haven't been told either way. I mean, we know Adam's the one on trial here, but we've been given, I mean, I guess we were given Kayla's testimony. That's what's supposed to bury Adam, was her saying what he did. I have not seen Jess yet this morning. I haven't heard from her yet. Oh my God. Bullshit. Wow, I asked 8-Ball if Adam would be convicted, and it said, I don't know. Ask BK's dad. You know, if she was left with her, Dior, that's what makes me feel like she could have had more of a part in it. Lizzie Bones, Kevin's testimony and Adam's friend's testimony of his violence towards Harmony holds weight. Also, his violence towards Kayla. Yeah, that's a really good point. Hold on. His go-to when angry is punching the face area, not strangling, etc. Good points, Lizzie. Really good points. It shows a history of violence, whereas Kayla's history of violence. Very, very good points. Leslie says, I feel he couldn't hit her with enough strength to kill her from his position. The lady was also trying to prove that when asking about beating the little
Please
one.
be seated.
Oh, I guess, yes.
We are back.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Apologies.
Okay.
Here we go.
I was told you were going to file something, but I don't see any, but I just checked with the clerk's office.
Yes, Your Honor, if you could approach.
Yes.
What are they filing? So the prosecution filed something. Dr. Melmo says they should both be convicted and spend life in prison. They are both criminals. I agree. I know she might be on her way there still. Because I feel like if she was at home watching, she would be in chat. Thank you guys for supporting her too and her drive to and from. I know a lot of you have sent her some cash apps, and that's really nice of you. I mean, it could go either way, but I think that Lizzie has some really good points. That there's such a history with Adam and his abuse and his temper and everything else. Schmicky says, I actually believe Adam did kill her, but she's guilty too. My husband and I were talking, and he even pointed out that if that were me, as a mom, I would do everything to avert that abuse onto me to stop him. Yeah, I mean, she's like, oh, I didn't do anything because he gave me crazy eyes. It's like, crazy eyes? You're worried about crazy eyes while this little girl is getting the shit kicked out of her who's 32 pounds? And you're scared of crazy eyes? Like, oh no, I would have totally hit her hard with that one. Like, you're worried about crazy eyes, but we can't badger the star witness, right? We can't badger the star witness. I did not, Robin. Let me see. I don't see it, Robin. Can you retype it? McKenna, I agree with you. She says, I hate them both and hold them both responsible. And Karchi, I have to agree. Karchi says, I'm separating my feelings and the evidence so far. Kayla never hit the kids. If Harmony was sitting in the middle seat, he could have easily turned around without a seatbelt. She's complicit in hiding it. Allison Taylor, it spoke volumes that she seemed more upset about Adam supposedly abusing her after Harmony was gone. Good morning, Miss Robin.
Bring it all in.
Dr. Malmo, these people do not worry about their children. They pick their men over their kids. The star witness is a selfish, stupid woman who has no right to ever have children. Hoku, too. Make an excuse. Save Harmony. I agree. Absolutely, McKenna. 100%. You'd get in between this grown man and this child, and crazy eyes wouldn't hold you back.
Who's the first witness?
Who's the first witness?
Oh, right, DNA.
Oh, right, DNA. Carolyn, it's going to be a long day. Oh, Meg P. Oh, my God. I didn't see your Meg P donated $20 on www.j4j411.live. Thank you so much, sweetheart. And then she also purchased a hat, a J4J hat. Thank you so much, Megs. Make sure you send a picture of your beautiful self. You got the camo one? Ah, I made that just for you. Thank you so much. You're so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate you. How did Kayla get the bag down from the ceiling to walk to Adam's work? Did she get it out of the ceiling? I don't know. I've missed that. I missed that.
Jeepers.
Carlin says, after all, the defense hasn't presented anything to show Kayla caused her death, even though I hate her. I agree. Dior, she didn't care less. She laid down and got pregnant again. Do you think she'd have stopped? She thinks she would have stopped him if that was Kayla's daughter. Not only did she lay down and get pregnant again, but she got pregnant in the same room where Harmony's decomposing body was in the vent. I mean, her brain is fried. No normal person does that. No normal person can do that. No normal mother can do that.
Why don't we put your... Oh, it's a different witness. Never mind.
Your Honor, if you wish to get the jury in, that's fine. I'll be ready by the time they're here.
Okay. Please bring in the jurors. All rise for the jury, please.
What do you think Kayla would have done had it been one of her boys? Good question. I think both of them were annoyed by Harmony because she was Crystal's daughter. They don't have the mentality or the maturity to separate Harmony from Crystal. They hated Crystal, so in turn, they disliked Harmony. And I mean, I think that's just the way it is. I think she didn't like her. By the way, I heard on Court TV that the picture that I have on the screen was actually taken in 2019, guys. Harmony was 5 years old in that picture. That was taken in 2019, according to Vinnie Politan of Court TV.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. State may call its next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Alan Ackroyd Gonzalez.
Yeah, I mean, Kayla's brain is fried. She had no feelings towards Harmony except for hatred because she hated Crystal because she was jealous and immature. Right?
What you are witnessing is real. The participants are not actors.
Remain standing.
Good morning, Leo. Yeah, she was really
Do you
small.
swear that the testimony that you're about to provide this jury will be the truth and the whole truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
You can have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. Is there some water in front of you?
Oh, water ASMR coming
When you're
up.
ready, if you can just start by stating and spelling your full name
Because
for
she
the
was
record.
scared and being abused, Dr.
Excuse
Melmo.
me. Alan Ackroyd Salas, ALAN ACKROYD hyphen ISALES.
Mr. Ackroyd Azales, where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed by DNA Labs International.
And how long have you been employed there?
I've worked at DNA Labs International for roughly the last 2.5 years.
What is your current assignment with that organization?
I'm currently a senior DNA analyst.
And what is a senior DNA analyst? What do you do?
DNA analyst
Can I ask him
examines
about the
evidence,
knife sheath?
connected to crime scenes for the presence of biological material and seeks to obtain DNA profiles from whatever biological material they find.
And what's your current role and responsibility in that as a senior DNA analyst?
Well, as I said, I conduct analyses on evidence, write up reports as to my conclusions, testify as necessary. In addition to that, I also participate in continuing education, proficiency testing, training newer analysts in the protocols and procedures of the laboratory, and any other duties I can perform to help the lab function smoothly.
Before you were employed by DNA Labs International, where were you employed?
Prior to DNA Labs International, I worked for the Defense Forensic Science Center, which is the forensic laboratory for the armed forces.
And let me back up for just a moment. DNA Labs International, where's that organization based out of?
That's based out of Deerfield Beach, Florida.
You mentioned your prior role with, I think you mentioned the defense. Can you just repeat?
Defense Forensic Science Center.
Defense Forensic Science Center. How long were you employed by them?
I worked there for roughly 10 years.
And when did you start with them? What year?
I started with them in 2011.
Can you tell these jurors about your background, your education?
Well, I got a bachelor's in science and biology from Haverford College, and then a master's in forensic science from Virginia Commonwealth University.
And what year did you graduate from? Did you say Haverford College?
Haverford College, yes. I graduated in 2008.
And what specialized training and experience do you have for your current position?
Well, every laboratory will have its own training plan for DNA analysts. So my first job with the Defense Forensic Science Center, I passed their specific qualifications. And after that, when I was employed at DNA Labs International, I then passed their specific training plan. And in addition to that, I participate in proficiency testing, continuing education, keeping abreast of developments in my field.
Have you testified previously? I know you said that that's a function of your current role, but have you testified in a superior court?
Yes, I have.
Can you tell the jurors what your experience includes with that? How many times have you testified?
To date, not including depositions, I've testified in 2 hearings and 2 trials. Not in this jurisdiction, however.
DNA Labs International, is that an accredited organization?
Yes, it is.
And what is its accreditation?
Well, it's recognized as a laboratory that can be trusted to follow proper protocols and procedures, keep to guidelines set by the FBI. And accreditation was given by the American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board.
You mentioned proficiency testing. Can you tell the jurors what that is?
Essentially, a proficiency test is a mock case submitted by an organization outside my laboratory, in which they know what results I should get from DNA analysis on the evidence they send us, and I have to properly follow my lab's protocols and procedures to get those correct results. That demonstrates I can properly do the job.
So that's proficiency testing in general. Have you completed proficiency testing?
Yes, I have.
What were the results?
I passed every proficiency test.
Approximately how many samples have you performed DNA analysis on in your career?
This is a very rough estimate, but I would say that I've worked on approximately 30,000 samples in my career at this point.
30,000?
Yes.
Have you ever been recognized as an expert in the field of forensic analysis, DNA analysis?
Yes, because I've qualified as an expert witness in other jurisdictions.
Your Honor, the state moves to qualify Mr. Ackroyd-Azales as an expert in the field of DNA analysis.
I have no objection to him giving his opinion.
The court finds him so qualified.
And you mentioned testifying in depositions. Did you testify in a deposition in this specific matter?
Yes, I did.
And during that deposition, did you reference reports that you had written in this specific matter?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell the jurors how many reports you've authored in this case?
I wrote 6 reports for this case.
The material that you referenced during that deposition, that was the defense's opportunity to ask you questions. Do you have those here with you today?
Yes, I have them.
And would referring to those items, those reports, the material that you authored in this case, would that help your testimony?
Yes, it would.
Being able to refer to that information.
It would be helpful.
Your Honor, I'd ask that this witness be allowed to reference his case material as necessary.
Upon request as necessary.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ackroyd-Azales, this jury's already heard from an analyst, a DNA analyst before, but just generally, can you describe what DNA is?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's the basic building block of life. It's present in all living things.
And can you tell the jurors where it's found in the human body?
DNA is found in the nucleus of the cells within a body.
And does DNA differ cell to cell?
Within a single organism, DNA does not differ from cell to cell.
How about person to person?
Person to person, yes, the DNA does differ. That's the basis of DNA analysis.
And can you just explain for the jurors, can you just walk them through the steps of DNA analysis?
So there's a couple key steps that had to be performed once a sample is collected from evidence. First is extraction, in which that sample is exposed to a combination of heat and chemicals. Now that serves to break open whatever cells are present in a sample and purify the DNA within it. Following that is quantitation. All that means is just measuring how much DNA is present in that extracted sample. And if there's enough DNA, the step after that is amplification. Now, the human genome, that's a lot of information. I don't need to look at every bit of that. I'm just interested in roughly 20 or so genetic markers, what I call loci. And that's enough for me to differentiate the DNA from one person to another. So the way amplification works is that it makes millions upon millions of copies of just those genetic markers in a sample. So once that's been done, the last step is injecting that amplified sample into a genetic analyzer. And essentially this instrument just translates that amplified sample into a DNA profile that I can interpret and analyze.
And you mentioned your lab's accreditation. Does your lab follow standardized protocols and procedures?
Yes, it does.
And you mentioned a review process. Can you just describe what that review process is for the jurors?
Well, a review that my reports always have to go through is a technical review. So another qualified analyst has to review my work, make sure that they agree with my conclusions, and that I wrote up my results appropriately.
Mr. Ackroyd-Azales, I want to switch gears and I want to talk about your work on this case. And again, if you need to refer to your notes at any point, just let us know. But Did you conduct DNA analysis in this case?
Yes, I did.
And what known DNA samples were you provided during the course of your work on this case?
To be clear, DNA sample references that the laboratory worked at, or DNA profiles that were provided but from another agency.
Let's first talk about DNA profiles that were provided by another agency.
If I can refer to the reports. DNA profiles for Harmony Montgomery and Adam Montgomery were provided by the New Hampshire Department of Safety Forensic Laboratory.
And that DNA profile for Harmony Montgomery, do you know where that came from? What that was, where that profile was developed from?
That was taken from a toothbrush, presumed to have been Harmony Montgomery's property, and as such was taken as an alternate reference for Harmony Montgomery.
2 known profiles is what you mentioned receiving. During your work on this case, your involvement on this case, did you develop another profile?
Yes, we
Go ahead.
we received a reference sample for Crystal Sorey, and we developed a DNA profile from that sample within my laboratory.
And was that from a buccal swab?
Yes, it was.
So now that we know about these known samples that you received, I want to talk about your work on this case, specific items that you processed and analyzed. Before we get there, though, can you just describe the 4 steps that you go through when you receive a swab, when you start with a swab or cutting of an unknown DNA sample?
Well, as I explained earlier for the DNA process, we go through extraction, separating the DNA within the cells in the sample from the rest of it, quantitation, measuring how much DNA there is, amplification, making copies of just the genetic markers that I look at in a DNA profile, and then injecting that amplified sample into a genetic analyzer. And that's what gives me a DNA profile that I can look at and interpret.
During the course of your involvement on this case, did you receive an item MER 3D RL13?
Yes.
Okay. And so let's begin with that item. That's already been admitted in this case as State's Exhibit 74, and it's marked MER 3D RL13. What is that item? Can you tell the jurors?
If I can go to the report.
Please.
That item is pieces of sheetrock with heavy stains. A piece of sheetrock with heavy stains, excuse me.
Piece of sheetrock with heavy stains. Did you perform DNA analysis on that item?
I performed DNA analysis on samples taken from this item.
Okay, and how many samples were taken from that item?
2 samples were taken from this piece of sheetrock, one from the left bottom corner of the staining, and one from the center edge of the staining. And these 2 samples were combined together to go through the DNA process as one sample.
And can you just explain why you do that and how it works?
Well, why 2 samples were combined?
Yes.
In this case, it was presumptive that staining all came from the same source. It also tested as indicative of blood, so we went on treating that as being from the same person.
And you said it tested as indicative of blood. What does that mean for the jurors?
So we did what is called a presumptive test for the presence of blood. So that's generally considered, a presumptive test is very sensitive for whatever material it's testing for, but it's not considered confirmatory, as in it's not considered specific to that material. So in this case, we only did presumptive testing, so all I can say is that blood was indicated on this item.
So you combined the 2 samples that you received. What were the results of your testing?
At the end of the DNA process for that sample, the resulting DNA profile indicated at least 1 female contributor. However, due to some ambiguity in the profile, I interpreted it as 2 contributors.
And what was the ambiguity? Can you explain that?
Well, there are known side effects of the DNA process that can at times indicate that there's another contributor present. Basically, those signs weren't conclusive enough for me to say that there was definitely at least two people there, but it was suggesting that there were two people. So as a result, my language was that I interpreted that profile as two people.
What other conclusions were you able to draw from those samples in your analysis?
In comparing that DNA profile to the reference profiles from Harmony Montgomery, Crystal Sorey, and Adam Montgomery, none of them were able to be ruled out as possible contributors to that mixture.
Did you perform a likelihood ratio on those results?
Yes. A likelihood ratio is essentially a comparison of two competing ideas. In this case, I'm saying that for this DNA mixture, one idea is that the DNA profile is explained by the presence of one of the references and an unknown person, versus the other idea being that the DNA profile is made up of two unknown people. So by comparing those two contrasting ideas to explain the evidence, I can generate a likelihood ratio which says which of those propositions we say is more likely than the other.
And what was the likelihood ratio with respect to the profile that you received from Harmony Montgomery?
The DNA, I'm reading directly from the report, if that's all right.
Any objection?
No objection, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The DNA profile from the sample is approximately 4.1 billion times more probable if the sample originated from Harmony Montgomery and an unknown person than if it originated from two unknown persons. And this analysis provides very strong support for the proposition that Harmony Montgomery is a contributor to the DNA profile obtained from this sample.
And you just said very strong support. Why use that phrase, very strong support?
Well, we use a verbal scale to describe the strength of likelihood ratios, and the strongest language that I'm allowed to use is very strong support, and that begins when a likelihood ratio is 1 million or greater. And in this case, as I said, the likelihood ratio is 4.1 billion.
And can you explain the significance of that number, 4.1 billion?
Well, just to give us a scale, a sense of the numbers, a million is a 1 followed by 6 zeros, if you're ever lucky enough to see it on a check. A billion, on the other hand, is a 1 followed by 9 zeros.
So we're still talking about States Exhibit 74. That's MER 3D RL13, the piece of sheetrock that you mentioned. Did you conduct further analysis of that item?
Yes, as I said, I also conducted comparisons to Adam Montgomery and Crystal Sorey. In comparing Crystal Sorey to this DNA profile from the piece of sheetrock, the DNA profile obtained from the sample is approximately 12 times more probable if the sample originated from two unknown persons than if it originated from Crystal Sorey and an unknown person. In this case, this analysis provides limited support for the proposition that Crystal Sorey is not a contributor to the mixture obtained from this sample.
Any other analysis that you performed with respect to those samples?
In comparing Adam Montgomery, the DNA profile obtained from the sample is approximately 18 times more probable if the sample originated from two unknown persons than if it originated from Adam Montgomery and an unknown person. And this analysis provides limited support for the proposition that Adam Montgomery is not a contributor to this DNA profile.
Still with respect to States Exhibit 74 MER 3D13, RL13, which the jury saw yesterday, just for clarification. Did you test another sample of that item at some point during your involvement in this case?
Yes, in a report after this one that I just described the results from, another sample was taken for testing.
And why was another sample taken for testing?
Well, we received permission to use a amplification kit different from the one that is originally approved for the New Hampshire State Police.
Can you walk us through the process of that second sample that you took, or third sample rather, that you took?
Well, I should say that we requested this permission because the DNA was very degraded, we could see, on the sheetrock. And the kit that we wanted to use was an upgraded version of the one we had used before. So it tested for more genetic markers, and we would be able to perform more conclusive analysis, I should say.
Now, you just mentioned the DNA that you observed on that item, Exhibit 74, being degraded. Can you explain to the jurors what that means?
Well, DNA is not a very strong molecule, I should say. There's a lot of different environmental factors that can break it down. That includes ultraviolet light, exposure to heat, chemicals, cleaning agents, strong acids and bases, prolonged immersion in water, bacteria. So all that can serve to break down DNA. So there's not many places just out in the world where DNA won't be attacked in some fashion.
How about time? Does time have anything to do with
Well,
degradation of DNA samples?
Generally speaking, yes. The longer DNA is exposed to any of those elements, DNA is going to break down even further, with more time, with more exposure.
The third piece that you tested, can you walk us through your analysis, the process that you used?
Yes, just flipping to that report. So this is still that item, the piece of sheetrock with the heavy staining. An additional sample was collected from approximately 3 inches of the bottom of the stained area. And again, blood was indicated on that sample. And the DNA profile obtained from this sample definitively indicated a mixture of at least 2 individuals.
Were you able to draw any conclusions based on your analysis?
In comparing Harmony Montgomery, Crystal Sorry, and Adam Montgomery to this new mixture, again, I wasn't able to conclusively exclude, they could not be conclusively ruled out as possible contributors to the mixture.
Did you perform a likelihood ratio as you did with the prior samples?
Yes, I did.
What were the results of that likelihood ratio?
In comparing Harmony Montgomery to this mixture, the DNA profile obtained from the sample is approximately 1.1 trillion times more probable if the sample originated from Harmony Montgomery and 1 unknown person than if it originated from 2 unknown persons. And this analysis provides very strong support for the proposition that Harmony Montgomery is a contributor to the DNA profile obtained from the sample.
And that terminology that you just used, the very strong support, that again is the highest level of support that you can provide, is that correct?
That is the strongest language that I'm allowed to use.
And can you explain the significance of that number, 1.1 trillion?
Well, a trillion is a million multiplied by another million. Or to put it another way, as I was saying, a million is a 1 followed by 6 zeros. A trillion is a 1 followed by 12 zeros.
You mentioned 2 potential contributors. Was there a second profile that you were able to obtain from that item?
Sorry, do you mean was I able to perform a likelihood ratio for that second contributor in the mixture?
Correct, yes.
I wasn't able to conclusively, I was able to perform a likelihood ratio for Adam Montgomery and Crystal Sorry to that mixture. For Crystal Sorry, the DNA profile obtained from the sample is approximately 1.5 times more probable if the sample originated from Crystal Sorry and 1 unknown person than if it originated from 2 unknown persons. But we consider that uninformative if a likelihood ratio is between 1.1 and 2, because that's just not strong support for either proposition. In comparing Adam Montgomery to that mixture, the DNA profile obtained from the sample is approximately 69 times more probable if the sample originated from 2 unknown persons than if it originated from Adam Montgomery and 1 unknown person. And this analysis provides limited support for the proposition that Adam Montgomery is not a contributor to the DNA profile obtained from the sample.
Just to clarify, from that third sample that you took, how many profiles were you able to obtain? How many profiles did you obtain? DNA profiles?
It was only 1 DNA profile, but I could see that there were at least 2 individuals within it.
And what does that mean for the jurors?
Well, essentially, I was only able to, we treat it as identifying Harmony Montgomery in that mixture, given the likelihood ratio, but I was not able to conclusively identify the additional second contributor in that mixture.
The second contributor, what can you tell the jurors about that profile?
Well, it was a very partial person. There was not a lot of genetic information for that person in the DNA profile, so I would not honestly expect to be able to identify that person even if we had obtained the reference that matched that person in the evidence.
And what does that mean scientifically, a partial person?
Well, essentially that there just wasn't a lot of genetic data. There wasn't a lot of DNA from that second contributor present in the DNA profile.
So I want to turn your attention now to another item. Did you have occasion to test samples from MER 3D RL14 and 12? That's DLI number 22-07495.01.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
The DLI number or
The DLI number.
Yep,
Yes.
it's 22-07495.01. And just to clarify, DLI applies its own numbers to items that it receives. Is that right?
Yes, I did have occasion to perform DNA analysis on that item.
Okay. And sorry, you were looking at your notes when I asked, but DLI, when you process items, you apply your own item numbers to the evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And so this item has previously been admitted as State's Exhibit 81. What is that item? Can you tell the jurors?
That item, 22-07495.01, that is two rails screwed together.
And I think you answered this already, but did you perform analysis on that item?
Yes, I did.
How did you perform analysis of that item?
Well, there was staining visible on this item, so blood was indicated on the rails that were screwed together. And following that, the sample was collected from that staining for DNA analysis. And already went through the DNA process, and the resulting DNA profile of that indicated at least one contributor.
One contributor, no.
Yeah, a single contributor.
What results and conclusions were you able to draw from that?
Well, Harmony Montgomery could not be ruled out as a possible contributor to that DNA profile.
And just as with the prior samples, were you able to perform a likelihood ratio?
Yes, I was, in comparing Harmony Montgomery to that DNA profile. The result of which was the DNA profile obtained from the sample is approximately 1.4 trillion times more probable if the sample originated from Harmony Montgomery than if it originated from an unknown person. And this analysis provides, again, very strong support for the proposition that Harmony Montgomery is a contributor to the DNA profile obtained from the sample.
Again, can you explain the significance of 1.4 trillion?
Well, again, the language for very strong support for a proposition that starts when a likelihood ratio is 1 million or greater. And a trillion can be explained as a million multiplied by another million, or a million is again a 1 followed by 6 zeros, and a trillion is a 1 followed by 12 zeros.
I want to turn to the other items that you analyzed during the course of your involvement with this investigation. And so I want to go through those items individually and talk about the conclusions that you were able to draw, starting with an item LH, 1LH, a pillow with rope drawstring.
Yes, I have that in front of me.
What conclusions, if any, were you able to draw from your analysis of that item?
Well, staining was visible on the pillow with the drawstring, but no blood was indicated on this item. And following that, 2 samples were collected from the item for DNA analysis, one from the rope and one from the exterior of the pillow. However, no DNA was detected on either sample, so we didn't do any further analysis past that point.
How about item BE017, BE017?
BE017 was a clear, thin zip tie. Again, there was visible staining, but no blood was indicated on the zip tie, and an insufficient amount of DNA was detected from a sample collected from it. So again, no further analysis was performed.
I want to turn your attention to item number JP88. Did you test that item?
Yes.
And what conclusions, if any, were you able to draw from your results?
This item was a pink child sock. Apparent hairs were visible on the sock. We did not conduct any analysis on that. We did take a DNA sample from the interior of the sock, and the DNA profile obtained indicated a mixture of at least 3 individuals with at least 1 male contributor. And furthermore, Crystal Sori could not be ruled out as a possible contributor to that mixed DNA profile.
And did you further analyze that in another report?
Yes, I did.
What were the results of that additional analysis?
If I can flip to it. And further reports, I was also able to compare the DNA profile for Harmony Montgomery and Adam Montgomery to the DNA profile obtained from the sock.
What conclusions were you able to draw from that comparison?
Well, first, in comparing Crystal Sori, probabilistic genotyping results supported their exclusion as a contributor to the DNA profile obtained from the interior of the sock, when a proposition of 3 overall contributors was considered. In comparing Harmony Montgomery, again, the probabilistic genotyping results for Harmony Montgomery supported their exclusion, again, as a contributor to the DNA profile obtained from the interior of the sock. In comparing Adam Montgomery, the probabilistic genotyping results for Adam Montgomery, again, supported their exclusion as a contributor to the DNA profile previously obtained from the interior of the sock, when a proposition of 3 overall contributors was considered.
Any other conclusions you were able to draw from that item?
No, that was all the analysis that was done on that item.
I want to turn your attention to JP 216-C. Did you have an opportunity to review and analyze that item?
Yes, I did. This item. Sorry, 1 moment. This item was a cutting from a sweater.
I'm sorry?
This item was a cutting from a sweater, JP 216-C.
Okay. What, if any, conclusions were you able to draw from your analysis of that item?
Blood was indicated on that cutting. However, an insufficient amount of DNA was detected from a sample taken from the cutting, and because of that, no further analysis was performed.
I want to turn your attention to MER 3D1A. Did you have an opportunity to analyze that item?
Yes, this was a metal cutting.
What, if any, conclusions were you able to draw from that item?
Blood was indicated on this cutting. However, an insufficient amount of DNA was detected, and therefore no further analysis was performed.
Turning your attention to MER 3D-B, were you able to analyze that item?
Yes, this was a lab cutting of stained drywall backing.
What, if any, conclusions were you able to draw from that item?
Blood was indicated on this cutting, but an insufficient amount of DNA was detected, and therefore no further analysis was performed.
Turning your attention to JP 251-1, were you able to analyze that item?
Yes, this was a section of string.
And
Blood
what
was. I apologize. Blood was indicated on the string, and the DNA profile obtained from the string indicated at least 1 male contributor. Crystal Sori and Harmony Montgomery were excluded as contributors to that DNA profile, and Adam Montgomery as well was excluded as a contributor to that DNA profile.
And that was in a later analysis, is that right?
Yes.
And just to clarify, you said the defendant Adam Montgomery was excluded, Crystal Sori was excluded, and Harmony Montgomery, they were all excluded from that DNA profile?
That's correct.
Understood. Turning your attention to MER 3D-A2, did you have an opportunity to analyze that item?
Yes, this was another lab cutting of stained drywall backing. Blood was indicated
Go ahead.
on the cutting. And the resulting DNA profile obtained from the cutting indicated a mixture of at least 2 individuals with at least 1 male contributor. However, due to the complex nature of this mixed DNA profile, it was inconclusive for comparison purposes.
Turning your attention to JP 216. JP 216, were you able to analyze that item?
If I can, I'd have to go to the report that it was analyzed in. JP 216.
Correct.
Okay, this was a sweater with stains.
Were you able to analyze that item?
Yes. Blood was indicated on the sweater, and a sample was collected from a possible blood stain on the wearer's right side for DNA analysis. However, the resulting DNA profile obtained from that sample indicated a mixture of at least 4 individuals with at least 1 male contributor. And due to the complex nature of that mixed DNA profile, it was inconclusive for comparison purposes.
Turning your attention to MER 3D RL3. Did you have an opportunity to analyze that item? And if it helps, it's DLI item number 22-07494.01.
Okay, yes, I have it. Yes, I did have opportunity to analyze this item. It is screws and a rail.
What, if any, conclusions were you able to draw from that item?
From the rail, blood was indicated on the rail, and the result of which was that a sample was collected from the staining. However, an insufficient amount of DNA was detected from that sample, so no further analysis was performed.
I want to turn your attention to a final item, TSC 8. Did you have an opportunity to analyze TSC 8?
I'm sorry, can you give me the DLI item number?
If I can have just a moment. It's 22-11851.
Yes, I did perform analysis on this item.
And what was that item, or what is that item?
It is the carpeted floorboard from an Audi.
You said from an Audi?
Yes.
What, if any, conclusions were you able to draw from that sample?
No blood was indicated on that carpeted floorboard, and a sample was collected from the entire surface of the item for DNA analysis. But no DNA profile was obtained from the sample.
So, Mr. Acro-Rosales, I just want to summarize. You were able to develop a profile from MER 3D RL13.
Sorry, I need to flip
Fine.
back and see what item that is. Yes, I was.
And that was 4.1 billion times more likely to be Harmony Montgomery and an unknown person.
For one of the samples taken from that item, which was the piece of sheetrock with heavy stains, yes, that was the resulting likelihood ratio.
And when you tested another location on that item, you were able to obtain another likelihood ratio.
That is correct, yes.
Specific with respect to Harmony Montgomery, what was that likelihood ratio?
That likelihood ratio was 1.1 trillion times more likely if that DNA profile had originated from Harmony Montgomery and an unknown person than if it originated from 2 unknown people.
And you were able to develop a profile on the item MER 3D RL4 and 12.
Yes.
And can you remind the jurors what the likelihood ratio was for that item with respect to Harmony Montgomery?
That item was 2 rails screwed together, and the resulting likelihood ratio in comparing Harmony Montgomery was that it was 1.4 trillion times more probable If the sample originated from Harmony Montgomery, then if it originated from an unknown person.
1.4 trillion.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Azalis, Ackroyd Azalis. I have no additional questions for you, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
One of the reasons that states would say a state lab like New Hampshire that does DNA sends items to you or DLI labs is because you do a different type of DNA analysis than most other places in the country, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking.
The genotype probabilistic testing.
Yes. So probabilistic genotyping is what is used to perform likelihood ratios. Essentially, that's a combination of statistical methods and biological concepts to help in DNA analysis.
And what that does is, like, complex means more than one, can mean more than one DNA sample, right?
Well, in saying that a DNA profile is complex, that can potentially mean that that sample is from more than one person. That's possible.
It could mean that the DNA sample was somewhat degraded,
That's possible.
and it could mean that there's less of a sample.
That's possible, yes.
Okay. And there's other reasons that people, well, for the most part, I'm going to call it PGT, probabilistic genotyping. Is that what?
We usually just do PG, but I will understand what you mean if you say that's what PGT means.
Okay, because I will stumble over the words if I have to do it each time. PG is essentially a way to get better information from less DNA or more complex DNA.
Compared to traditional analysis methods, yes.
Okay, so if there was like a finding of two sources on a DNA sample, but the lab wasn't capable of further analysis, it might come to you.
That's possible.
Okay. And probabilistic genotyping is actually a computer algorithm, right?
Computer software is used, yes.
Okay. And it combines all possibilities and runs whether or not the likelihood of this possibility being achieved. Why don't you explain?
Well, essentially, you're asking how a likelihood ratio is performed?
What it means. Yes, how it's performed.
Essentially, the software makes at the start random guesses as to what genetic, well, what I should say what alleles, so what specific genetic markers apply to each contributor in a mixture, and in what proportion for each of the genetic markers that we look at. And by comparing that, and then for each successive guess that it does blind, it compares to the actual DNA profile, and it can see how closely or how badly it fits the actual data. So as a result of that, it makes successive guesses as it goes through what's called Markov chain Monte Carlo. So essentially, as it's making these random guesses, it does assess whether the next guess is better than the previous guess. And as a result, it kind of narrows in on what the actual genetic alleles, what DNA profile applies to each contributor in a mixture.
And a person who compares DNA profiles can do the same thing, but it would take an astronomical amount of time, right?
A computer can do it in the fraction of the time that I could do it by hand, yes.
Okay. And when you hit numbers like trillion, billion, things like that, that the DNA probabilistic result is 1.4 billion. You said it's very strong support for the DNA profile matching another person?
I would say that it's very strong support for the proposition that the DNA profile resulted from the person who's being compared, as well as however other unknown individuals are present in that mixture.
Okay. So one of the things is this can't make a match,
I can't conclusively say it's someone's DNA or not. No.
but the likelihood is so high that you might be able to accept it as a match.
I can't say that.
The likelihood that it is that person, when we're in the billions and stuff, is pretty high.
It is high, yes.
Okay. And you can have likelihood ratios right down to 2 that mean something, right?
Yes,
Because under 2, it's uninformative, I think you said.
that's correct.
Okay. So if we can sort of say it's probably somebody by a probabilistic ratio of 10 versus a billion, the more likelihood that it is that person at a billion.
Shut up, man.
Right?
Well, a billion is a lot larger than 10, if that's what you mean, yes.
Okay. And, okay. Somebody might walk away from that pretty comfortable that it is the person that the matching says it probably is. The DNA is from that source that the probabilistic ratio says it is.
I can only speak to the statistical weight. I can't
Okay.
tell anyone to come to a conclusion.
So you can't conclusively say that Harmony Montgomery is the source of the DNA on the sheetrock or the rails, but the probability is very, very high.
That's fair to say.
Okay. Now, on the sheetrock, you found a possibility of 2 sources.
Sorry, we're talking about...
MER 3D13? RL13?
Yes.
Okay. And you weren't quite sure, but that probability was there, right?
I wasn't quite sure about what, I'm sorry.
Whether it was 1 source or 2 sources, but there was enough to raise that possibility.
For the first 2 samples that were taken, yes, it was.
Or two.
It was at least 1 person, and there were some suggestions of it being 2 people, and as a result of that, I interpreted it as 2 people.
Okay. And then when you did the testing on the rails and the analysis there, that was pretty conclusively 1 source?
There was no indication of any other contributor being present in that DNA profile.
Okay, so if the sheetrock and the metal rails came together and the DNA that was on both of them was from the same source, can we conclude that there was only 1 source on the sheetrock?
Well, no, because I can't speak for how people in the past might have touched these various items, or who made what kind of contact, or how DNA came to be on an item. I simply can't speak to the activity that led to DNA ending up on an item of evidence.
Okay, so the possibility that the sheetrock had 2 sources and the metal rails had 1 source. The possibility that the sheetrock had 2 sources still exists even though the rail had 1 source.
Yes, the DNA results support that.
Okay. And did you receive any profiles from Kayla Montgomery to compare?
Kayla Montgomery? No, we never received a reference for that person.
Okay. So I want to talk about some of the other testing that you did in this case. You reviewed it, some of them with the state, and let's talk about JP88, which was the pink sock. And JP, the jury has learned P stands for Pittman, who collected evidence from an Audi. And you found DNA degradation.
Yes, that's true.
And the jury has heard the condition that the Audi was in at the time that it was searched. You were able to obtain DNA from the Audi, right?
Are we still speaking of the pink child sock?
JP88, sorry.
I was able to obtain a DNA profile from the sock, yes.
And you were able to exclude Harmony and Adam from that DNA?
In comparing their DNA results by probabilistic genotyping, the statistics supported them being excluded.
Was it in this? It was a very high number, right?
10 likelihood ratio supporting exclusion, 10,000 or greater. We consider that, that this is the phrasing we use, that they support their exclusion.
And this was well above 10,000.
If you want the exact number, I need to go into the case file.
I don't need to, but it was a lot over 10,000, right?
It was at least 10,000. I don't remember the number exactly from memory.
Okay, but it is a, within your realm, that strongly supports exclusion.
That's correct.
And you talked about 1 billion strongly supports exclusion earlier on other items.
I believe we were speaking of inclusion when I was...
Okay. So anyway, it strongly supports exclusion on the pink sock, right?
In comparing Harmony Montgomery, Crystal Soria, and Adam Montgomery, yes, the resulting statistics all supported their exclusion from the pink sock.
Okay. So DNA survived the conditions that the jury has heard that the Audi was in, sufficient to make a comparison of DNA and make a determination that supports exclusion.
In this case, yes.
Okay. Now the JP 216 was a sweater with stains,
Yes.
and it was an adult sweater with stains.
I actually don't have that information in the reports,
Okay.
what size or to
Okay.
what person that sweater is intended for.
And I think the conclusion was at least 4 individuals on that.
For the sample taken from a possible blood stain on the wearer's right side, the resulting DNA profile was a mixture of at least 4 individuals with at least 1 male contributor, but it was due to its complex nature. Yes, it couldn't be used for comparison purposes.
Okay, so you're comfortable with the conclusion that it is at least 4 people contributed to the staining?
I'm comfortable with the conclusion that I got DNA from at least 4 individuals from the sample taken from that stain.
Okay, and that at least one of those individuals was male?
That's correct.
And did you determine if that staining was blood?
Blood was indicated on the sweater. Yeah, but I wasn't able to conclusively identify it as blood.
Okay. And again, blood can survive extreme conditions of very, very hot and very, very cold?
It's possible, and I don't know the exact weather conditions and what other factors might have come into play with where the sweater was found.
Okay. And if a conclusion of different testing was that it was blood on the sweater, you can't say one way or the other if that conclusion was correct or not.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm
If
not sure I
other
understand.
testing revealed blood on that sweater, you can't determine whether that other testing was correct or not.
Well, if my laboratory or I didn't perform that testing, I can't speak for whoever did it.
Okay. And I guess the thing that I'm trying to get to is that DNA and blood, while it can be degraded by many different conditions, it can also survive in many different conditions, right?
That's fair to say, yes.
And it can survive over years.
Possibly. Again, it depends on the specific conditions.
Okay. If I may have a moment.
He said, well, I may as well get some water. This lady's going to be a while.
And I think the other was TSC8, a carpeted floorboard from an Audi, you testified? Or a piece of a carpet?
Carpeted floorboard
Okay. From an, did you say, does it
from
say?
an Audi, yes.
Okay. There was no blood nor DNA, right?
No blood was indicated from the staining, and sorry, can I just double check
Sure.
the case file quickly? There was DNA detected on the carpeted floorboard, but there was no, while it went through the DNA process, we weren't able to obtain a DNA profile.
Okay,
At the end.
okay. No blood, but DNA.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further from the state?
I can have just a moment.
Yes.
I got that song stuck in my head too now.
Mr. Ackroyd-Azales, you were asked about the type of testing that DNA Labs International conducts. Do you remember that line of questioning from the defense?
I believe so, yes.
The defense attorney asked you specifically about your lab conducting a different type of DNA analysis than other places in the country. Do you remember that line of questioning?
Yes, it went into probabilistic genotyping, I believe.
And let's talk about probabilistic genotyping. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
Probabilistic genotyping, is that something that's not done in other places in the country?
It's actually a pretty standard method at this point. My laboratory certainly isn't the only one in the country that uses it.
And is this a new method?
It's been in use since 2015.
You said that this computer software that you use, it runs the test in no time.
Well, far quicker than I'm capable of doing by hand.
And that's my next point. You are able to do this by hand, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
I want to talk about the likelihood ratios that you were asked about. What threshold is required for very strong support?
So, again, going to the verbal scale used to describe likelihood ratios. When I'm able to describe a proposition as having very strong support, that results when a likelihood ratio is 1,000,000 or greater.
You were asked about a second contributor to the source from MER 3D RL 13.
Yes.
I think on direct you said that second profile was really uninformative. Can you just explain that to the jurors?
So, while I could see that there was a second contributor in this mixture, as I think I said earlier, there just wasn't a lot of data of that person. So there was enough for me to see that there was someone there, but not enough for me to feel that I could conclusively identify who that second contributor is.
During your involvement with those pieces of sheetrock, the metal framing, did you receive a known profile for someone, for a detective, Scott Riley?
I did not know.
Thank you. No further questions, Ruth?
You said that this type of testing, PG, has been, your lab has been around since 2015?
No, it's older than that, but I don't recall the exact year it was established. However, the program used, StarMix, that employs probabilistic genotyping, that's been used in forensic analysis, DNA analysis, since I believe it's 2015.
Okay. And are there more than 8 labs now that apply StarMix?
I believe so, but I would need to check the numbers to be sure.
Okay, so it's growing, but at first, weren't you all the only ones doing it commercially?
That's possible. I actually don't know offhand.
Okay. In any event, it's been verified and validated and everything else, right?
It's a respected and trusted tool for forensic analysis, yes.
Okay. But not necessarily every state has the ability to do it.
Well, investing in new technology, that's an immense, that costs a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort. So, yes, it's not everyone uses it as of yet.
And that's why state labs might send it to a private lab to be analyzed rather than doing it themselves.
That's possible.
Okay. And the likelihood ratio, I think a little bit of confusion may exist. Very strong support. You mentioned the thing 1 million, and then earlier 1,000. Do you need 1 million to include somebody?
Telling her not to fuck herself.
No, the verbal scale just describes the relative strength of a likelihood ratio, and I believe what you're referencing was when a likelihood ratio is 10,000 or greater supporting exclusion, that we treat that as excluding a reference from a mixture.
Okay. So it's like not even very strong support. Once you hit 10,000, you're excluded.
That is how we treat it, yes.
Okay. And I'm
sorry, just to clarify that point, I can't outright say they aren't there, but just that's what the statistics support. So that's why we use that language.
Okay. And on MER-3D-RL4 through 12,
God.
Adam was excluded, right?
Mr. Montgomery,
I'm sorry, yes.
he was excluded from that DNA profile from that item, yes.
But you also believed that that item had one source.
The resulting DNA profile only indicated one person, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I know it's very precise terminology and I'm not being so precise, so I apologize. On MER-3D-RL13, there was, that could have been 2 people, right?
Well,
2 sources, sorry.
in the first sample taken, it was at least one contributor that I interpreted as 2 based on ambiguity in the profile.
Okay.
The second sample taken at a future date, that indicated a mixture conclusively of at least 2 people.
Oh, my misunderstanding. Okay. And then probabilistic testing, it was uninformative as far as Crystal was concerned and limited support that Adam was not a contributor.
We're talking about the second sample taken from a piece of sheetrock?
Yeah.
Or rather, I should say, the third.
9/14/22.
Sorry, just to be clear, for the sample that was taken at a later date using a kit that an amplification kit that we received approval for, yes, Crystal Sori, the likelihood ratio for her to the mixture from there was uninformative, and there was limited support for the proposition that Adam Montgomery was excluded from that mixture.
Okay. And a conclusion that there's probably 2 sources and Adam Montgomery is probably excluded.
Well, there's limited support.
Okay. And there's no support on the other side that says he's included, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And like I say, that side can go down to 2 and mean something, right?
Well, at that range, again, we use limited support to make it clear that it's a small number.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, thank God.
Hate you, I hate you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
All right. You may step down, sir. He may be excused.
Yes.
And you are excused.
Thank you.
May we approach?
Yes?
They're approaching now. So I wonder if they're going to take a break right now or not. Queen, I hope you feel better. I feel like it's allergies. And welcome back, you guys. Meg was so generous to gift 5 memberships. And I see that a lot of you, or a few of you, are green again.
It makes sense
Welcome
to have
back.
our mid-morning break now.
There we
So
go.
we'll break for 15 minutes. We'll be back at 25 up.
All right.
All right. Please rise for the jury.
All rise.
Stand up!
All right, here's the new link. I'm going to be ending this in just a minute.
Council, just approach for a minute.
Okay, they're approaching. We're going to be muted. Now's a good time. Hop on over to the other chat. Okay, there's the link. Hop on over there. Just don't miss a beat.
Exhibit E. EXHIBITY.
I'll see you over there in just a few minutes. All right, see you in a minute.